How do you take the free users of your product who are not paying you any money right now, and many of whom never will, and convert them not into monthly, but annual subscriptions at a high rate, a large number of them? Well, that's what we're going to talk about right now. So I've worked with Adam Robinson for almost 4 months now. His business had rocketed to $1 million ARR in 16 weeks when we started working together, and just recently done that. But there was a lot of work to be done to turn this into a process that would run over and over again, in which we could really take all of the value that he was providing and turn it into revenue for the business and a way for him to serve the customers at a higher level. And so we did a webinar, and we've been working on this webinar for like 4 months. This is not a normal SaaS webinar, which would be product focused. So we worked on this webinar for 4 months, and we just ran it last week. We got over 1,000 people registered, which is crazy. And Adam closed 15% of the room. We didn't get 1,000 people to show up. Our show up rate was actually, I need to work on that. There might've been a technical issue in there. But out of the number of people he got on that webinar, he sold an annual subscription of our B2B bundled with some things like courses and a community that we put together into this irresistible offer. And he sold almost 15% of the room and made about $28,000 in an hour. And as his co-founder said, anytime you can spend an hour and make $28,000, you do it. So let's talk about some of the principles that are happening here that make this work. I've been talking about this stuff on LinkedIn for a while. Here is a more tangible example now that we've run this webinar with Adam. You can put this kind of webinar in a couple of different spots. You can put it in front of a lead sign up. So if you're running a PLG motion, you can put it in front of your free user sign up, and you can drive more signups that way. Or you can put it inside your free user flow. It's part of the process of onboarding them as a free user. And you use this to upsell a lot more of them into paid users, and not monthly, but annual subscriptions. Again, I'll talk about what that looks like in a minute. But the incredible thing about this is that if you put this in your free user flow, these are people who were never going to pay you before, except at a small rate. So if you're like a lot of PLG companies, you have maybe a 1 to 3% free to paid conversion rate. That's just for people who go up to a month to month, and maybe they'll only be there for a few months. This can put you at a much higher conversion rate with an annual subscription. Think about what that does to your revenue conversion metrics on your PLG product. So you could put it right there, and that's what we originally intended to do. But with Adam, his audience is just so big and so enthusiastic about what he has to say, he started advertising this webinar to the broader audience, which is where we got 1,000 people to sign up. In the registration flow for the webinar, we said, hey, by the way, this webinar is not about our B2B, and it wasn't. That's a key distinction. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it will help if you have an RB2B trial, because we are going to mention it once or twice. And if you've at least had the experience of seeing somebody land in your RB2B inbox and you didn't even know they were on their site, and now you have their name and their email address, certain parts of this webinar are going to click for you a little bit better. We're driving new trial subscriptions, new free, they're not trials, they're free forever subscriptions. We're driving more of those through this process of registering people for the webinar. And then they already have that trial, and we upgrade them on the webinar. So the principles that we're utilizing here are things I've been talking about for a while, like I said. First of all, you have to dial into a problem and not just on what your product does. And if you followed Adam on LinkedIn, you know that his huge following, they all know what he does. They all know what our B2B does. They understand the features, but that's not what Adam spends most of his time talking about. Adam talks about the problems of how companies can't build pipeline anymore because the old way of doing it isn't working. And he can tell that story better than anybody about how cold outreach doesn't create pipeline in most industries anymore. And where it does, it's just declining, but it's just declining slower than the areas where it's already gone to zero. By telling that story, Adam really taps into the pain that people are feeling, and they assume that he's got something that can help, that he's got a result or a way to provide a solution that could get them a result that they want, which is more pipeline. So you've got to start with that. Don't start talking about your product. Don't speak in the SaaS babble that most B2B SaaS companies have on their websites. That it just sounds like every other website. It's techno speak, it's like business speak, and it's not interesting. If you describe it to them better than they can, they will immediately assume that you have the solution. Number two, talk about the result that you can produce. And the result, Adam talks about inbound led outbound and how this new process is creating pipeline in his business and in other businesses that he has, provided this tool to, and this process, they're creating pipeline much faster than other companies in the industry right now. So talk about the problem, then talk about the result. And then, because you're going to offer them a result, here's the key understanding that this hinges on. Your product doesn't give them a result. And you're kidding yourself if you think that it does. Your product is a tool that somebody can use to produce a result. If I need a hole in the ground in my backyard, you can't give me a shovel and say, here's your hole. That's not the result. I'm going to have to go do a lot of work, and digging a hole is hard. And I know that. And so you're trying to sell me a shovel and say this is a turnkey solution to digging a hole. I know that you're not being authentic and honest with me. Your prospects in your B2B SaaS business are the same way. They know that what you're selling is a tool and not a solution to their problem. And so to give them a solution, you want to talk about results and you want to give them a result, you have to bundle other things with it. You have knowledge, you have expertise, you have experience, you have standard operating procedures. You've seen how this works in the best case scenarios and your best customers. You've seen how this works, and you need to be able to bring that with your product and you bundle that together. Now you can offer them a result, a true solution to their problem. They're still going to have to do the work, but you've given them more than just a tool to do it with. You've given them all this other knowledge that will help them do it. And it will differentiate them from others who don't have that knowledge and expertise and those standard operating procedures and decision trees and things like that. And so you're making your product stickier by doing that, but you're going to increase your conversion rate because you are tapping into their desire to solve this problem. And the final thing is you bundle it with community. You build a tribe, a community of people who you're serving through this bundle of your product and these other knowledge products, these info products, knowledge products, trainings. And when you do that, you're giving them an identity that could be really cherished for them. Depending on what problem you're solving, think about in Adam's case, if you're an B2B customer, you want to create pipeline and you're doing it in a time when nobody else is having success creating pipeline. And if Adam can give them a way to create pipeline, that makes them really special and really valuable in the marketplace. Whether they're, a founder of a company, whether they're running an agency, whether they're a RevOps person at a larger company or a marketing person at a larger company, they can do something that is rare, unique, and valuable in today's market. And that makes them a more valuable individual. That increases their status, makes their career trajectory a lot steeper, and gives them a lot more opportunities. When you can do that, you can create a truly valuable community by giving them this identity and bringing people together who have this identity into a group. And so when you do this, your sales motion, the way you convert these people actually changes dramatically. It's not, have them sit around reading blog posts and hoping that they click that book a demo button in the top right corner of your blog, sometime, and seeing the very small number of people who actually come through that process. You are actively moving them through this selling journey, and you're doing it in a way that converts at a much higher rate. You're converting not just monthly users, but annual users. It's just good for the business on so many dimensions. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been a useful breakdown of what we did. And, at Profit Automation, this is what we do all the time. This is our business. It's been useful in that this can give you some ideas of what to do in your business, especially if you want to convert more of your free users to paid users in a PLG motion. Although this would also work in a sales-led motion where you're just not getting leads into your sales pipeline. You can absolutely use this motion to impact that metric and get more people into the pipeline and have them be more qualified when they get there. So this has been the Growth and Influence Podcast. Hope you're having a great day, and we'll see you next time.